Good morning, everybody. This is a live emergency briefing as we have a blob of convection that is organizing across the western Gulf of Mexico that is exiting the Bay of Campeche. This is forecast to organize into Tropical Storm Francine, likely on the next update, and then it'll likely rapidly intensify into a hurricane. And I think that the ceiling for this storm is probably a Category 3. Most likely right now would be a Category 2. But it could be a Category 1, 2, maybe even a 3. But remember Hurricane Zeta back in 2020, that also responded to the ventilation of a trough and then came in as a Category 3, slamming some areas there of southern Louisiana. So this is a live emergency update on a soon-to-be Tropical Storm Francine and eventually Hurricane Francine. And this thing is going to be approaching Louisiana Wednesday, possibly Wednesday night. And it looks like there could be a tornado outbreak as well across portions of southeastern Louisiana, including New Orleans, into southern Mississippi with that eastern feeder band. Thanks everybody here for tuning into this live emergency update, getting this thing set up. We're going to look at all the latest model data here. Definitely hit that notification bell if you know anybody in the path of this thing. But there you can see that blob is stalled out frontal boundary across the northern Gulf of Mexico. Definitely starting to lift north along the western periphery of a subtropical high. And then a trough, upper level trough, is going to be coming into Texas. And it looks like the ventilation ahead of that system, a little bit of diffluence ahead of that trough, will lead to potentially rapid intensification. I know the latest that I saw, there was over a 2/3 probability that this thing is going to hit 100 mile per hour plus in terms of maximum sustained winds. We're going to be heading down there and covering this live, of course, and we'll be streaming live here at Team Dominator. That's the official National Hurricane Center cone. The National Hurricane Center has it coming in at about 80 miles an hour, but you know how this goes. These things always end up ramping up right at the last second, forecasting a Cat 1, thing comes in as a Cat 3 or Cat 4, maybe even a Cat 2, or even a strong Cat 1 like Beryl did, causing all those issues there west of Houston. But anybody Houston to New Orleans needs to continue to watch this. There you can see some of those GFS Ensemble members that range basically from a further west track out near Houston as far east as New Orleans. But I do think that New Orleans is more likely to get impacts from this because of the tornado potential in that eastern feeder band that we're going to show you in some of the high resolution hurricane models. The 12Z models, intensity models, do show a category, a couple of them show a Category 2 at landfall. The official National Hurricane Center track, though, shows a Cat 1, but these have been trending up. Yesterday, they were all showing a tropical storm. Today, they're starting to show that ceiling potential that a lot of the operational models were showing. And that includes the GFS, which has been on this thing since the beginning. And I know that the GFS is notorious for spinning up these intense tropical cyclones in the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of times it's right, especially with these that form kind of in the Bay of Campeche and will lift up. A lot of times those end up being, sometimes the GFS ends up being the most accurate model. Here's the HAFS model, some of the high resolution hurricane models that are now latching on to this rapid intensification process. This is the HAFS-B model. It has it at 967 millibars tomorrow evening. This is like Tuesday at midnight, just east of Port Lavaca out there. A nice tire of a tropical cyclone, vertically aligned as well. And look at that, 962, 961 millibar central pressure. And then it starts to respond to the southwesterly wind shear a little bit right near and just after landfall. So it might come down just a little bit when it starts to feel that southwesterly oriented wind shear with the upper level trough. Almost tries to become a bit of a half-a-cane, but you can see very tight isobars in there. And you definitely want to watch the onshore side of this hurricane. The HAFS-B model shows intercoastal city area out here just getting racked. And this is an area that can definitely get surged. Here in southern Louisiana, you have a belt of a levee system here that protects the lower marshes, or protects some of the marshes above it, but below that levee system, you have mandatory evacuations, including Cameron Parish, all the way. It looks like if this comes into south central Louisiana, you'll have a lot of offshore flow out here across Cameron Parish, which would be a good thing. But if it does go a little bit further west, that would bring a lot of that onshore flow into Cameron, and that would cause some big problems. But this HAFS-B model definitely shows that intensification and then a little bit of a weakening right prior to landfall. We're going to 961 to 965. So I bet this thing approaches category 3 intensity offshore and then weakens a little bit, maybe to a cat 2, maybe a high end cat 1. But importantly, this is going to be an issue, and the our trusted hurricane model, the HWRF, really shows those even better. So the HWRF's a little bit weaker of a system, though, coming in at 977 millibars. But then you get these supercell storms that just erupt. Look at those. Eruption of supercell storms. New Orleans into southern Mississippi. And this is Wednesday night at about midnight when this one comes in. And you have a range of landfalls from Wednesday afternoon by the HAFSB model to Wednesday night by the HWRF and HMON and some of the global models. But when this thing comes in Wednesday night, this is going to bring tornado potential up through Houma, New Orleans, Lake Pontchartrain, maybe even Venice Beach out there, Venice, Louisiana, Grand Isle, likely going to have landfalling waterspouts if this verifies. And notice also that this brings the dirty side of the system right into the intercoastal water, intercoastal city. And then it comes in, and that's going to bring the tornado threat inland a little bit into portions of Mississippi as well. And look at the rain as well coming in, several inches of rain. But I do think that that trough is going to pick up this system a little bit after it comes in, and you probably won't get a foot plus in terms of rainfall. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center still has that moderate, or excuse me, the Weather Prediction Center has that moderate risk for excessive rainfall instead of a high. So let's take a look at some of the steering mechanisms that are at play here across the Gulf of Mexico. And we also want to look at that trough that's going to be coming in. We're going to have a big trough that's going to be coming into Texas. And interestingly, it looks like we're going to have some ventilation ahead of that trough. So here's the trough on a Wednesday night, folks. And I'm going to show you what this ventilation looks like. You guys want to see a little bit of ventilation? How about a little more? There it is. You're looking in the upper troposphere. Obviously, you got this trough coming into the Pacific Northwest, kind of ushering in the beginning of the second season for severe weather and tornadoes. Looks like September 18, 19, 20. That could ramp up Central Plains, Northern Plains, Upper Midwest. But it's this trough right here that's going to influence a Hurricane Francine, and possibly a powerful Hurricane Francine. Because notice how it gets just that little bit of a neutral tilt, and you get some of these upper level wind barbs a bit more due southerly, if not even south-southeasterly in there. And then you get these barbs going off way to the west. That creates diffluence here ahead of that trough, and that should lead to an intensification right prior to landfall, and then it starts to feel those strong westerly shear as the trough ejects, as you start to get this jet streak that's moving through the Houston area. By about that time, that's going to be picking up Francine and causing it to weaken right near and just after landfall. But it also could lead to an uptick in the tornado potential there over southeastern Louisiana into southern Mississippi. We're going to be chasing the landfall of this hurricane and the tornado potential after it makes landfall, of course. And this upper level trough doesn't have a lot of cold air aloft with it either. Look at this trough coming into the Pacific Northwest. It was like minus 20 degrees C air. This one's about minus 8, minus 9. It is a cold core system, but it has filled in a little bit in terms of the upper level temperatures. I think that's why also you get this storm system, the ability to thrive. There's not as much of an upper level temperature gradient up there. It's not going to be as tilted quite as much. And there you can see that tropical cyclone moving into the Gulf of Mexico on approach to Louisiana. Look at that thing. Go over to 850. We're looking at the 6C GFS model run. And it just has a barrel tire here. Look at that, with the eye, that you're looking at 850 millibars coming right into south central Louisiana. And I'm going to show you the GFS Ensemble members as well. But the operational GFS deserves a little bit of respect, just because a lot of times it's very accurate, and a lot of times it's on an island too. But it has like a 975 millibar central pressure, 974. So it does show it weakening just a little bit as it feels that wind shear. 981. And this is Wednesday late morning. We're going to be on the coast just waiting for this thing as the conditions begin to deteriorate. 974 millibars. Look at that onshore flow just piping right into the intercoastal city there, south central Louisiana. This is Wednesday at 4 p.m. So the 6C GFS has accelerated this a little bit. The HAFS models agree with a landfall Wednesday afternoon during the day. 976 millibar ripper coming right into south central Louisiana. And the European model has begun to adjust as well to the GFS model. And don't forget, a little bit further east, even though this hurricane might go west of Louisiana, it still could shift east. And Grand Isle could be under the gun, Venice, New Orleans, Homa. But even if this does go off to the west, you're still going to get that tornado potential that will likely evolve as this gets picked up by that upper level trough. And you get that low level jet in the front right quadrant. Look at that low level jet here. And usually right near that boundary where those southerly 850 winds shift to a little bit more of an easterly direction, a lot of times that's where you get the greatest tornado potential. Let me slide this down a little bit for everybody so that you can see that thing. Right here, that's where the gradient goes from southerly 850 winds up to easterly, right along that, almost like an effective warm frontal zone as it comes in. It almost lifts that coastal front further north. That's where the tornado potential is going to set up here on Thursday. And it looks like it's going to possibly move into southern Mississippi as well. We'll shift into southern Mississippi and track this system after it comes in, bringing with it that tornado potential. So watch that into central Mississippi. See how that gradient of the southerlies into easterlies shifts north of Jackson, even near Jackson by this time, Wednesday early morning according to this timing. And it lifts all the way up to the Memphis area by Thursday. So this is accelerating, moving really fast after it makes landfall. And it looks to me like that's going to preclude a more significant flood potential with that system as it moves off to the north. But I do think that there is going to be some tornado potential, maybe over portions of Tennessee as well. Could get in on that action. And I know that the Hurricane Hunter aircraft are in this system right now sampling it. So we're going to head over to our tropicaltidbits.com. They're in the storm. It looks like they've sampled a central pressure of 1,005 millibars. But the winds here, flight level winds up greater than 50 knots down in that southern edge. So you can see that yellow, those yellow wind barbs, and you see that little orange right there. That's probably the southwest side of the circulation. And some decent winds found there, but still not that low pressure at the surface, but they might need to head a little bit off to the southwest. There you can see the position of that Hurricane Hunter aircraft, and it's awesome to be able to track these in real time. And they initialize these models with this data, and it's so important for the accuracy of these forecast models, these high resolution forecast models. It's very important to be initialized with this important data from Hurricane Hunter aircraft recon. But the earlier one didn't sample those low pressures just yet, but it's just starting to get organized. There's not a ton of banding right now. So you can see it's basically a blob, a purple blob of convection. But as this thing organizes, you're going to start to see more banding as those cloud elements, everything wants to go in toward that intensifying low pressure at the center of the blob. You get vigorous convection like this, it leads to latent heat release through the column. That leads to surface pressure falls. You get more convergence at the low levels, more vigorous convection, more latent heat release, more surface pressure falls. And those are the runaway positive feedbacks that lead to a rapidly intensifying tropical cyclone like this. But it still needs to develop more of that banding, but I do think we're going to have a tropical storm coming up here at the 11 a.m. advisory. And you can start to see that banding actually in the visible satellite. And look at that little poof of convection, but start to see how those cloud elements, low-level cloud elements, kind of wrap around the circulation, kind of trying to go in toward the center of the blob, in toward that low pressure at the center of that unit there. But as I mentioned, the GFS ensembles show a spread still from Houston all the way through New Orleans. And that's why we just need to keep an eye on this thing. These are the 6C GFS ensemble members. I can show you a little bit better representation of these, and you can actually look at the individual low pressures, minimum pressures of the GFS ensemble suite. The ensembles are a good way to kind of look at forecast discrepancy too, and forecast agreement. But look at that high pressure centered here over the Gulf. That's why this thing just kept trucking off to the east, and then by the time it got to the Bay of Campeche, it got to the western edge of that high, stalled, kind of felt the curvature of the coastline. You have the cyclonic curvature of the Bay of Campeche, and they also have that upper level trough off to the north. And see how these steering currents go southwest to northeast, kind of a squeeze play between the high pressure there over the southeastern Gulf of Mexico and the arrival of this trough. And it should take it right up toward intercoastal city, south central Louisiana, right about there. And you can see a little bit of diffluence as the winds down here want to wrap anticyclonically around that high pressure to the south of it. These winds want to curve cyclonically up toward that approaching trough. And that's why you get that diffluence, a little bit of ventilation ahead of the upper level trough as well. But looking at the individual ensemble members here, there you can see kind of the agreement of the GFS model, at least east of Brownsville, and you can see how some of these individual low pressure centers are well into the 990s, 995, 995, 998. So a lot of these are intensifying, agreement in the location as well. And then here it is, just on approach. You definitely have some differences in timing. You have these members up here that are a little bit faster, already making landfall even by Wednesday morning. And then you have these slower members, but it looks like about a Wednesday afternoon landfall, at least at the 6C GFS ensemble. Members are really starting to hint at, and they got a 995, 994. So nothing as low as that operational GFS. So you could easily get a double-digit storm surge with a system this strong, especially near intercoastal city, south central Louisiana. Definitely could have some big problems. And just for fun, let's see what the NAM has. NAM has it similar to the GFS. Timing a little bit later, though. The NAM model has it coming in Wednesday night. That's Wednesday at 7 p.m. So you do have a wide range of timing right now. Basically goes from early Wednesday possibly to early Thursday. So definitely do have a big variability in timing as well. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this live update. Be sure to share this if you know anybody down in this region. Trying to provide these live updates. Like this as well if you need to. That always helps. Here's the official National Hurricane Center track. And I'm going to head over and see if the new advisory is out yet. Yep, but we do have Tropical Storm Francine has been formed. There it is. You heard it here. Breaking news. There's Francine. So we have Tropical Storm Francine, 1,002 millibar central pressure, max sustained winds of 50 miles an hour. That just means that they found a closed low-level center of Tropical Storm Francine. Eventually to become Hurricane Francine on approach to Louisiana. So let's see what the newest cone has. Or there's not, oh, excuse me. There it is. The newest cone has a landfall 7 p.m. just west of intercoastal city. And that, yeah, it has that Tuesday evening landfall. At least it won't be in the dark down there in the marshes, but definitely heed those evacuation warnings. Certainly, especially there south of that levee zone. Yeah, this has it still at 80 miles an hour. The National Hurricane Center official cone has not upgraded that yet. Oh, that's still 4 a.m. They might have. There. Still coming out. I bet it's a lot stronger too. Up to 10 feet in forecast, and a lot of this hinges on exactly the the exact path that hurricane will take. But there you can see it. A 5 to 10 feet storm surge in Vermilion Bay, right up to the intercoastal city there. And that big surge goes all the way out to Point Fortune. And you're going to get a 4 to 7 foot surge all the way out into Venice. Remember, we covered Hurricane Zeta out there during Storm Rising. We were working for Nat Geo and covered the surge of Hurricane Zeta. Even though Hurricane Zeta came in a little bit west, we were out there at that marina in Venice and definitely saw that surge come in there. So it looks like a significant surge, 5 to 10 feet, all the way from Cameron to Port Fortune. But if that center of the circulation comes in right in the middle of that surge, then anywhere west of the circulation, you're going to have offshore flow. But you'll probably even have a life-threatening surge of 3 to 5 feet up there near the Boulevard Peninsula too, as that tropical cyclone passes just to your south. But we have tropical storm Francine has been named, and the National Hurricane Center official forecast has upgraded that to 85 miles an hour as it comes in, and we'll probably see that continue to go up. I wouldn't be surprised if it is 100 miles an hour when it comes in. Structure of the system has improved this morning. Large circular region of cold convection between minus 70 and minus 85 degrees C near the estimated center. The recon aircraft is still sampling the system. Air Force reconnaissance this morning earlier found a cyclonic wind shift from southwesterly to northwesterly flow near the center of mass of deep convection. So that's what was needed to get that thing up to a tropical storm, and it provides enough evidence of a well-defined circulation. And so potential tropical cyclone 6 has now been called Tropical Storm Francine. Shift a little eastward and faster, and the NHC guidance has reflected that. So that's one thing that we have seen so far this morning is a little bit of an accelerated timeline. It does look like we're going to have like 10 days off for hurricane season after this. This kind of record-breakingly slow hurricane season, but remember that it only takes one to cause major frickin' problems. And I am also concerned about the arrival of the second season around September 18. This is the 6C GFS. The 12Z is just starting to come out. Well, that's the name. Yeah, we got a ways to go for that. But you can see this trough coming into the Pacific Northwest. Definitely a cold core trough up there. That's kind of telegraphing the potential arrival of the second season. And you go over to about September 18th. Look at this trough begin to dig with a lot of flow on the backside coming in across the western U.S. That's on the 17th. And then it looks like there's an early trough that ejects on the 18th across the southern plains. And then it looks like you get a main kicker system that comes in on the 19th, lifting up toward the southern plains on the 19th. This would lead to big severe weather here, eastern South Dakota into Minnesota, but still a long ways out. But you can see the European model forecasts the evolution of this western U.S. trough, ridge downstream, kind of a double-barreled piecewise ejection on the 18th. And that cold core will off that cold core, and they kind of barrel in. And that creates a large low-level jet. Wouldn't be surprised if there's a southern plains signal on the 18th out here, southwestern Nebraska into southwestern Kansas, but it does lift the main vort way up into southern Saskatchewan. But this is just one model, the European model. The moral of the story is that it does look like the arrival of the second season is upon us. Look at that. As we go toward late September, it does look like a invigorated jet. This is probably going to be the next severe weather setup coming in toward the end of the month of September. So we're just getting started. But thanks everybody for tuning into this live update. We have Tropical Storm Francine that has formed. The big purple blob led to a closed cyclonic circulation at the low levels. Maximum sustained winds of 50 miles an hour. But this thing is going to turn northeast toward the southern coastline of Louisiana. Thank you everybody for tuning in to this. Thank you Team Dominator members.